Now that we've looked at and explained the direct realist view of perception, what we're going to do in this lesson is start to break it down and look at why the direct realist view of perception is essentially quite paradoxical in nature. And we're going to start by looking at the illusion argument against direct realism. So, as an introduction, we're going to look at the idea of illusions. That should be quite an easy introduction. But we're going to actually formalize it and define an illusion very specifically. And then we're going to look at an example of an illusion, which is going to be quite trippy. We're going to look at then really what the illusion argument is. We're going to explain it in premise and conclusion form. We're going to just really formalize the argument in a lot of detail. And then we're going to look at the implications of the argument, what it actually means for direct realism, that this argument exists and that this argument is this convincing. So the idea of illusion. What is an illusion? Simply put, an illusion is where one perceives a real object, but they perceive it in some way other than it actually is. Okay, so if we look at the following example, which is a very, very trippy illusion, what's happening here? So this is an illusion since the real image doesn't actually move. In reality, there is no movement here. But what makes this as an illusion and not a hallucination is that this image actually exists. There is an image here. It's just that our picture, our perception of this image is different to the actual properties that the image has in reality. In reality, this image isn't moving, but we're perceiving it as if it is moving. What makes this different from a hallucination is where we perceive something that doesn't actually exist at all. It's like, this would be a hallucination if I told you that there wasn't any image here. Then you'd have to really start to think about how much you had to drink. But this is an illusion because there is an image here, okay? But the thing that makes it illusory is the fact that this image here, isn't moving. Whereas in reality, in our minds, as we perceive it, it is moving. So I'm going to take us off that before we get headaches. So, yeah, this is an illusion since the real image doesn't move. But our perception of the image is that it is moving. Therefore, it's something which looks a certain way in our minds, but is actually quite different in reality. Can you sort of see where this kind of line of reasoning is going? If you think back to what we were talking about with direct realism, what direct realism says is there is a direct link between my mind and the mind-independent object that I'm going to perceive. So I think you can start to see why the illusion argument and just the existence of illusions in general proves to be quite controversial for this viewpoint. Because if we're perceiving something that is actually different in real life as it is in our minds, then how is there a direct link? And that's what we're going to formalize here. So it's in the form of a version of a number of premises and a conclusion. So we're going to have a look at it in a minute. So the very notion of existence of illusions is evidence that we cannot actually be directly aware of things in the external world via perception. There cannot be this direct link. Okay. So premise one. The image above, the image that we spoke about with the moving circles, in that image we perceive motion, we perceive movement. Okay. In reality, there is no motion, there is no movement. I think we can all agree, that this is these two premises are both true. We are perceiving movement and motion in that image when in reality there isn't actually any motion. I promise. So what we're really perceiving can't be real, can't be the real still image on the page, okay? Because what the thing in reality is, it is a still image on the page, but we're not perceiving a still image, we're perceiving a moving image. So what we're perceiving can't be that original still image. Examples of illusions feel exactly the same as examples of non-illusions. One is unable to tell the difference through perception alone. Now this is an interesting one. This is one that some people have a little bit of a problem taking to be true. However, if you think about it, there is no quantitative or qualitative reasons to allow one to be able to delineate between an illusion and just a normal perception. Veridical perception is the word we're going to use. Okay, that means just the real normal perception. There isn't actually any way of delineating between the two. So therefore, in any case of perception, whether it be an illusion or not an illusion at all, okay, what we're really seeing is some mental image, okay, of the object. We're not actually seeing the mind-independent object, event, or property. That's what the illusion argument is stating. The illusion argument is setting up the notion that there are some examples where we perceive something in our minds that is different in reality, and by just basically showing that illusions exist and explaining what they are. And then what it does is it takes us one step further. That's what premise 1, 2, and 3 do. It establishes that there are some things that are different in our minds to what they are in reality, i.e. illusions. What premise 4 does is try to convince you that now we know that there are things that exist separately and differently in our minds as they do in reality, but we can't actually tell the difference between those things. We can't tell the difference between a normal veridical perception and an illusion. Okay, so that's what gives the link to us conclude, which is what down here is to conclude that there can't be any link at all. If there's no way of being able to tell between illusions and veridical perception, then there's no way of there ever being a link between our mind and a mind-independent object. So what are the implications for this for direct realism, which is basically effectively contradicting direct realism? So what the illusion tries to show is that there cannot be any kind of connection to the outside world. So this link here between A, which is me, and O, which is some object, this link doesn't exist. There's no link here. Because if there was a genuine link between our perception and the real world, we'd expect illusions to feel different to non-illusions. Or we'd expect that illusions don't even exist in the first place. They either wouldn't exist or they could exist, but they would be able to be easily delineated. That's the illusion argument. So, talking philosophically, it's true that there is no phenomenological difference between an illusion and the veridical cases of perception. So what we mean when we say phenomenological is that there is no difference in our conscious experience of the two. The idea of phenomenology is the study of conscious experience. So phenomenology is the study of experiences that are consciously unique. And like I already said before, when we're talking about veridical perception, we're talking about perception of the real world, real perception, okay, the real link. So, like I said at the start, this is made worse by the hallucination argument, which we're going to look at in the next lesson. But for now, if take a summary, we've summarized what an illusion is, and we've outlined the illusion argument, and we've pretty much concluded, unless you've got some problems with the illusion argument. If you do, then feel free to put it down in the discussion section. But other than that, we've really concluded that direct realism cannot be true because of this argument. And we're going to, things are going to get worse for direct realism in the next lesson when we talk about the hallucination argument.